Now, the bill in the spotlight on Monday would limit the Supreme Court's ability to void government decisions that it deems unreasonable. For more on this, we'll cross now to our Jerusalem correspondent standing by, Irris Makler. Hi, Irris. So there is discussion of a compromise between the ruling coalition and opposition parties. What could that look like?
The compromise has been proposed by Israel's president. He got off the plane from Washington, his trip there, and began this negotiation. And it looks like a restricting this particular bill slightly so it's not as extreme, and then calling a halt to any further bills in this judicial reform program so that negotiations can take place on a broad reform package that everyone will agree to. You know, if we'd spoken 3 hours ago, I would have said to you 60-40 in favour of this compromise going through. Now I'm a bit less enthusiastic about those numbers, because I've just heard people in the Knesset speaking, and I'm not sure that even this moderate reform will go through, let alone the effect on everybody who's still out here in the streets.
So how significant is it then that Benjamin Netanyahu was absent for part of all of this?
It was hugely significant because the Prime Minister's health became another issue. He traditionally leaves things to the very last minute, sometimes beyond the last minute, but in those last 48 hours, he was out of action. He was in hospital having an operation, and then anyone who wanted to conduct a negotiation had to come to his hospital bed. That's how it happened. And then he had to rest. So basically, I have heard one analysis saying he's in office but not in power. And if that's right, the people who are actually making the decisions are the hardliners, including the Justice Minister, who wants this to go ahead at any price. It's his initiative. And that's the situation that Israel is in at the moment. A slightly absent Prime Minister, allowed out of hospital just in time to get to the Parliament to vote, but told that he has to rest for the next 48 hours.
And meanwhile, Irris, more protests, of course, are planned for this Monday, reflecting just how divided the country remains.
That's right. This is a divided country. Israel's former president, Reuven Rivlin, spoke last night to 100,000 people gathered right here. And he said he was joining them to save the country. And he warned that this was a real danger to Israel's democracy, perhaps the largest danger it's faced. And he called on the Prime Minister to halt this in order to stop these divisions. And what we saw last night was dueling protests, one in Tel Aviv, mostly from settlers bussed in from the occupied West Bank, and the one here. So there were those two opposing protests, and this morning we saw people sitting down outside the Parliament and police, water cannon out. It's almost surreal to see what's going on here today, right down to the wire, in fact.
Irris Makler will be keeping an eye on this here on France 24, of course. In the meantime, thank you very much for that update.